Hello and thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show. Redoubtable, a film about the romantic life of the revolutionary and influential French filmmaker Jean-Luc Godard. We speak to the actress who plays his wife, Stacy Martin.
T'es folle. Tu me vois dénoncer l'homme que j'aime?
The Things We Do for Love, a World War I deserter reinvents himself as a woman in golden years. And the Afghan films that were almost lost forever under the Taliban. Starting with a movie about the love life of the iconic French filmmaker Jean-Luc Godard. Redoubtable is out in France this week. It's directed by the Oscar-winning Michel Hazanavicius and stars Lou Garrel and Stacy Martin. I sat down with the French-English actress at the Cannes Film Festival, where the film premiered in May.
Il était respecté dans le monde entier. La nouvelle vague, c'était lui, Jean-Luc Godard.
Stacy Martin, hello.
Hello.
You play the French director Jean-Luc Godard's wife, Anne, in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this director so iconic?
I think because he, his films really revolutionised French cinema, and he inspired so many directors and still does now. And I think he really pushed the boundaries of what cinema was and why we make cinema. And it's interesting because this film is a lot more about his sort of human side, and so you step aside from the mythical figure and you look at the human being behind, and you find out that he's actually very funny and he's very tender and also very jealous and very possessive. But there is I think there's a lot more humour in Godard than we think there is.
Les vrais acteurs, moi je trouve ça con. Je les méprise. C'est vrai, vous leur dites de pleurer, ils pleurent. Vous leur dites de rire, ils rient. Vous leur dites de marcher à quatre pattes, ils le font. Enfin, je trouve ça grotesque. Ce ne sont pas des gens libres. Je suis sûr que tu demandes à un acteur de dire que les acteurs sont cons, il le fait.
Another legendary director that you've worked with is Lars von Trier. Your first film was Nymphomaniac in 2013. What was he like?
It was, looking back now, I realise now how quite crazy it was, but at the same time it was just so freeing not to have done any films before, because I had no apprehensions. I didn't know what to expect, and the beauty in how Lars directs is that he really gives you a lot of freedom to test things, to try things, and also to fail and to find out where is the right direction for the character or the scene.
I wanted to be picked up, put down, again and again. I wanted to be treated like a thing. May I tell you something?
Sure.
You're my first.
Really? Love you.
And there aren't many actresses who can say they had a porn double for their first role.
Yeah.
What's the most daring or difficult thing you've been asked to do in a film up to now?
I mean, having a porn double was very difficult because it's very technical. I think anything that requires that sort of mathematical element is very difficult for me, because I work a lot with, I like to be quite free in the way that I work, so anything that's too, mathematical.
You're half French and half English, which opens lots of doors for you. Redoubtable is a very French film, about a very French director. How does it differ, acting in English and French?
I don't think it changes. What changes, I think, is the style of film seems to change, and the way I think the English cinema is slowly aligning itself quite closely to American cinema, and I think French cinema has such a cultural history. I mean, with Godard and with Éric Rohmer, and it's almost like a gift to be able to kind of dip in both worlds, because I watch a lot of films, and those are the films that sort of inspired me to do my job. So to be able to be part of that is kind of an honour.
You've got several films in the pipeline, one with Jude Law coming up, and another directed by Kirsten Dunst. It's her first film as a director. What can you tell us about it?
I think it's great. There's a thing about, I think, actors these days who are trying to push themselves and what cinema is giving to people, and the fact that people like Brady, who was also an actor before he directed his first film, it makes you sort of love cinema even more, because it's people who are so in love with film and filmmakers and actors, and so it's kind of, yeah, I'm very excited, because working with Brady Corbet was one of the best experiences I've had as well, so I'm really excited about that.
Is there a director that you dream of working with?
There are so many. I mean, I dream of working with Claude Chabrol, which obviously is not possible. I'd love to work with Lynn Ramsey, I'd love to work with Tarantino, and to really just push as well in terms of style and genre, I think. And if anything makes me uncomfortable, that's where I should go, so we'll see.
Your first film was in 2013. Since then, you've done so much. How does it feel? What's your experience like in Cannes?
It seems unreal, to be honest. I'm quite surprised that the film made it into competition, because it's such a lovely, it's a funny film, it's a tender film, and you're sort of used to the heart-wrenching elements of the Cannes selection. So I'm kind of discovering how it's all happening and how, yeah, it's quite breathtaking.
J'avais cette chance d'admirer l'homme que j'aimais. Et il était sur le point de se révolutionner lui-même.
Next to the true story of a man who disguised himself as a woman to continue living with his wife and avoid going to war. It's the subject of French filmmaker André Téchiné's new film Golden Years. Olivia Salazar-Winspear reports.
1915, and Paul Grappe was one among millions of soldiers lost and traumatized by the horrors of war. His only comfort, snatched moments with his wife when he was granted leave. Terrified of the treatment doled out to deserters, but desperate to leave the trenches, Paul's wife Louise offers to dress him as a woman to escape the authorities.
Il faut que tu le dénonces. T'es folle. Tu me vois dénoncer l'homme que j'aime?
This story would never have happened if it wasn't for the war. It's not as if the guy said, hey, I fancy dressing up as a woman. Not at all. It was a survival mechanism.
The film Golden Years brings these extraordinary circumstances to the screen a century later. Paul Grappe lived as Suzanne for 10 years and even worked as a prostitute. It was a libertine and transgressive time for him and his wife.
It was a new life, a certain liberty for him to dress as a woman. It wasn't just about hiding, it was also about putting his past life aside.
Une semaine à peine suffit pour que l'odyssée du déserteur travesti fasse le tour des rédactions. Et c'est ainsi, mesdames et messieurs, que Paul Grappe passa de la clandestinité à la gloire.
After the amnesty of 1925, Grappe struggled to reappropriate his former life as a man.
Vous qui avez été une femme, qu'est-ce que c'est que d'être une femme? Monsieur Grappe, il a perdu sa langue.
A bittersweet story that's already been presented as a graphic novel. Now this cinematic version captures the roaring 20s, a time when grief gave way to a lust for life and when appearances could be deceiving.
Now to a look at some rare films that were almost lost forever because of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. The country's state film department is digitising these lost treasures, some dating back to the 1920s, with the goal of making them available to the public. The ultra-conservative Taliban banned popular entertainment during their rule. Ellen Gainsford reports.
These films were almost lost forever. When the Taliban ruled Afghanistan between 1996 and 2001, cinema was banned, and many movies were destroyed. But Afghan Films, the state-run film company, was determined to save their archives. Habibullah Ali risked everything to hide them.
We decided not to put all the reels in one place. We thought about the future safety of the movies and then decided where to put them. So we hid them in different places, like warehouses and in the ceilings of rooms.
He saved thousands of reels of footage, preserving Afghanistan's rich cultural heritage.
Our archives contain movies that date back to 1927. Many movies we have here have only one copy, and most of them have not been seen even in Afghanistan.
2 decades later, those reels are being made available to watch again through digitization. It's a time-consuming process. First, the reels are cleaned to remove dust and scratches. Then the films are watched on a projector. And finally, the reel is run through a machine, which transfers the film to digital form, frame by frame. A process that can take up to 4 days. Long-lost movies and documentary images of Afghanistan before it was ravaged by violence will be shown to the public.
After turning these movies into digital copies, we will appoint our mobile teams to go around Afghanistan in the villages and screen them to the people of this country.
For older Afghans, the films are a reminder of happier times. And for the young generation, a glimpse of Afghanistan's peaceful past that may help raise hope for its future.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show. We're going to leave you with the new exhibition celebrating the work of the globe-trotting French photographer and filmmaker reinvented. It's on at the Henri Cartier-Bresson Foundation until December. Remember our website. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Porque la historia se escribe día a día. Porque la actualidad no espera. La información, donde quiera que esté. En cualquier circunstancia. Todos los temas. Para entender el mundo. Para imaginar el mundo. France 24. Una mirada diferente. A partir del 26 de septiembre, en español.